Toy Story is one of my favourite franchises of all time, bar none. It's just an absolute classic. And for me as a kid, before I really started to look at deeper themes and moving sequences, I was more interested in the different characters. As a little fella, I was extremely enamored with Buzz Lightyear. He was my dude. And really from the very beginning, he's framed by the narrative as one of the big two of the franchise, with a unique design, a gruff and epic voice, and a huge amount of narrative involvement. And you can see his enduring popularity. Next to Woody, it's clear that the creators, Pixar, Disney, even the audience, view him as the natural lead character, one half of a whole with Woody. They're the leaders of the toys. They drive the plot forward together. He's on pretty much all of the merch, the toys, posters, mugs, memorabilia. The sheriff and the space ranger rule the world. That's just how it is, or rather, was. Because I feel like over the years, the franchise really did start to pivot and de-emphasize Buzz as an integral part of the story and the team. And I didn't really notice it at first because when you watch back those early films, there he is. He's relevant. And when the newer ones come out, I guess I just brushed past it. I didn't really notice as I had other things from the films that were on my mind up to that point. And so, like I said, it didn't really click. But now, whenever I think about the films and their stories and whatnot, the first thing that comes to mind is that by the end of the current run of Toy Story films, Buzz Lightyear had gone from one half of the most compelling animated duos ever to become a wasted character with very little direction in his story. And it's a shame. Because he was such a megastar when I was a little kid. By far my favourite character. But I suppose we have to go back to the beginning to show what I really mean. Buzz Lightyear is introduced in the very first film as a new toy joining the gang in Andy's room. Unlike the rest of the toys, he's completely unable to comprehend that he isn't a real space ranger on a mission. And he just can't accept that he's only a child's toy. And this, combined with his cool appearance and natural charisma that attracts the other toys to him, as well as the fact that he's suddenly become Andy's favourite toy since he's the shiny new thing based on a movie, and kids just love space and laser guns and all that, and so of course, Andy's gonna love him. But anyway, all of this instills a sense of frustration and jealousy in the mind of Woody, who up to that point had been the leader of the toys and the undisputed favourite of Andy among the group. He used to smile and condescend to the other toys about how, oh, don't worry, you're not going to get replaced. It doesn't matter how much Andy plays with you, he loves us all. Only to prove himself a hypocrite when all of this happens to him. And he tries to sabotage Buzz, but accidentally knocks him out a window, which starts off Woody's attempted redemption arc, where he needs to save Buzz in order to get them both home because Andy misses them. Whilst Buzz has his own existential crisis after finally realizing, oh, he's not a space ranger, just an action figure. And they really do go through some shit at Sid's house. Even now, I don't like thinking about Sid's house. You know the part I'm talking about. Ugh. I'm not even going to show it. I just got a shiver thinking about that thing. Anyway, they have to work together. And over the course of this sequence, they come to respect each other and become really close friends and team up to lead a toy rebellion at Sid's house and escape just in time to make their way into Andy's family car on moving day, preventing them from being left behind at the old house. And in this film, Buzz is extremely important to the overall story. One of the two overarching protagonists with a really compelling arc that involves delusion, depression at the loss of identity, and then acceptance at the concept of being a toy, and joy at feeling loved by a child. Massive arc. Really compelling stuff. Really nostalgic, really beautiful. And he embraces life as a toy and becomes just as dedicated to caring for Andy and bringing him joy as Woody is, becoming one of the leaders of the group. And this leads us into his story for Toy Story 2, where the story goes out of its way to cement him as an equal to Woody as one of Andy's favourites. Both of them being the joint hero in Andy's tale about evil Dr. Porkchop, and after Woody gets ripped and subsequently is accidentally taken out to a yard sale and stolen by Big Al, a local toy store owner and collector of vintage Woody's Roundup merch, it's Buzz who is the one who leads the rescue mission, recognizing Al from the TV ad, and setting out on an expedition to find him and save the day. And after a brief episode where Buzz is kidnapped and replaced by a utility belt-clad imposter Buzz, and accidentally releasing a toy Emperor Zurg who hunts the toys to Al's apartment, they all confront Woody and tell him they've come to rescue him. And when Woody refuses to leave because, one, he'd feel guilt leaving behind the Woody's Roundup gang, and also because he's afraid that if he gets damaged again, that Andy's going to be done with him for good. He'll get thrown away or put in a box and never played with again because he's too fragile. And so after that, it's Buzz that has to give him the wake-up call. The wake-up call that Woody gave him in the first movie. That he's a child's plaything, a toy, and that he'd been the one to tell him in the first place that the best thing in life for a toy, their sacred purpose, their reason for existing, is to love and be loved in turn by the children that own them. And whilst at first this doesn't really work out for Buzz and the gang, and they leave empty-handed, not long after his words sink in and begin to affect Woody, who calls them back, only for Stinky Pete to betray them, and now Buzz has to lead the gang in a rescue mission to the airport, which culminates in the Roundup gang joining the family. except for Pete. He gets sent off with some little girl. And so, this time around, the status quo was switched. Buzz was the one who needed to remind Woody about what's really important, to show that Andy, being there for him, is more important than anything. And that being stuck behind glass in Tokyo for the rest of time, never being played with again, is a truly depressing fate for a toy. Especially when they could all go back home together and be loved and cared for years to come. Woody's the one who gets stuck in the rut, and Buzz is the one who needs to drag him out of it. He's a huge part of the story, and the character who anchors that B-plot while Woody is off on his own adventure. And so this is where we actually start to see Buzz's time as the top-billed lead, next to Woody of course, sort of pull back a bit. And I don't think I really noticed it at first, especially in the third movie, because you're so used to that status quo. And I really liked the story of Toy Story 3. It's an absolute banger of a movie, with one of the best ending sequences in animation history, the incinerator to the so long partner scene. It's just one long, enduring chef's kiss moment. And on top of that, he does have a lot of screen time, but on reflection, it's just not the same as it was. When we return to the toys in Toy Story 3, it's in the twilight of their time with Andy. They don't get played with anymore, and are about to enter long-term storage in the attic when Andy goes off to college. All except Woody, of course, who's going with Andy as his favorite toy. And so we see that in the years since the second film, Buzz has really dropped in status from the days of being Woody's near equal in Andy's eyes. So, in hindsight, we could have a story that dives a bit deeper into that Buzz has to lead his group at Sunnyside Daycare, and also help to chart the course and try to save the toys from Lotso whilst overcoming his own self-doubts and self-worth issues. Whilst Woody, he's doing his own thing to try to get back to Andy, and eventually returns to help his friends escape from Lotso. And it does start strong. He clashes with Woody's ideals, he's the figurehead and mouthpiece for the remaining toys, until he gets nabbed by Lotso and gets mind-wiped to factory settings, becoming a member of the Goon Squad. And don't get me wrong, it's an interesting storyline and it is screen time, but it's also not, because it's not Buzz. It's evil Buzz. It's a different guy, a different personality, different memories. And also it does slightly rehash his kidnap and replacement with utility Buzz belt in the second movie. And so for the second chunk of the movie, when Woody returns to help them with the escape plan, you'd think, oh, here we go. He's going to be back and it's going to be like old times. Hell yeah! But then he's Spanish Buzz. And don't get me wrong, Spanish Buzz is damn funny with him dancing with Jessie and whatnot, but it's still not him. You know what I mean? And then a TV falls on him at some point and he's back to being normal Buzz and it's fine and dandy once again, but at the same time, feels like Woody's the main character. Buzz is supporting ensemble. And in that way, the film echoes Buzz's fate, that he's no longer on that same tier. You wouldn't know it from looking at promotional material and tie-in merch, but when you watch the movie, despite him getting a lot of screen time, the substance feels lesser than Woody. There's a gulf between them. But hey, I think I could forgive it here. The movie had a lot going on, and it has such an epic action ending, followed by the most bittersweet goodbye to childhood scene I've ever seen on film. Beautiful stuff. And so I was a little bit surprised that they were even going to make a fourth one, and I was worried that it was going to suck. And I'll be honest, I've spoken at length about my feelings on Toy Story 4. I don't want to get dragged into it too much here, but I didn't much like it. I still don't much like it. Nah. And I do have the same fears for the fifth, but I'll be optimistic for now. Either way, as part of this film, a key component of Woody and Buzz is stripped away. They're no longer the leader of the toys. They've joined a new group in Bonnie's family, and for Woody, this is a springboard into a big storyline. He adjusts to being a neglected toy, one who no longer is really needed or cared about. Bonnie has other toys she prefers, and they take pride of place while he gets crammed in the cupboard. Meanwhile, Buzz is there. He loses that luster of being the number two, and is very much just in the ensemble. And then when Woody and Forky go missing, Buzz goes off to find them, yes. But unlike in the second film where it felt like an epic quest and an anchoring storyline on par with Woody's, in Toy Story 4, it felt like you could cut his scenes until he finds Woody again, and the movie still works fine and flows almost just as well. He gets stuck with a bunch of fresh comic relief toys at the carnival, and whilst the goodbye was sad between him and Woody at the end of the movie, at the same time, I felt like that scene was carried heavily by nostalgia, rather than simply based on the emotion of the scene, if you get me. It doesn't feel like a farewell between Buzz and Woody, but more Woody saying farewell to the gang, with an emphasis on his friend Buzz. And so now I'm sitting here feeling at the end like Buzz got done dirty. 3, I could accept. It was still fun, but 4... I don't know. I feel like he well and truly lost his special status. The aura is shattered. Not just in universe, but also in the way he was written and the storylines he received. And I don't know, it was just kind of sad to see. And so yeah, not really much else to say beyond that, so I'll just remind you these have all been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think about what we've talked about today? You with me? Buzz get done dirty? Maybe not. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you hate his character. I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.